And the message buried deep in that video is, even one early adopter can turn a lone weirdo into a leader in his field. So, right? Yeah, baby. Good morning and welcome to everyone to the 6th annual Redbird Migration Flight Training and Design Conference. And good morning, comrades. And for those of you who I've not met yet, I'm Jerry Gregoire. I'm the chief pilot and one of the founders of Redbird Flight Simulations. All of us at Redbird are very honored and thrilled to have you here. And we promise to spend the next 2 days doing everything we can to make your travels here worthwhile. So thank you for coming. It hardly seems possible that 12 months have gone by since our last migration conference. As you can see, it was let's go ahead and change that to the next one. As you can see, it was an amazing event with lots of compelling speakers and ideas exchanged in both directions, featuring a cutthroat competition event along with team building and networking. As you veterans of migration know, every conference has a theme. And this year's conference is Invention and Big Data. I'm very pleased to tell you that we have two gentlemen who wrote the book on both of those topics here with us to share their ideas and their insights. There's just no doubt about it, the Migration Conference gets the most compelling and interesting speakers and panelists, no contest. And this year, we've assembled the best collection of technology demonstrations and breakout sessions that we've ever had. And what you're looking at here is a roadmap of the demonstration areas and the breakout sessions. So this morning, in addition to our keynote speaker, who I'll be introducing in just a few minutes, you'll be hearing from everyone's favorite bomb thrower and my personal flight instructor, Roger Sharp. And as usual, Roger will be talking about whatever happens to be on his mind this morning. And then before you all head off for the first breakout session, Brittany Michalka and one of our special guests, George Bai, the genius behind the electric-powered Sunflyer airplane, will take a few minutes to explain this year's team competition. For those of you who are here to participate in last year's competition, I realize that you may still be dealing with the trauma and the flashbacks and the night sweats from a year ago, but believe me, that was nothing compared to what we've cooked up for you this year. After the breakouts and the competition today, we'll be strolling down to the Commemorative Air Force hangar down that way for drinks and dinner and to share in a very special event, the AOPA Flight Training Excellence Awards presented by Katie Pribble and Chris Moser of AOPA. The recipients of those awards are among the attendees here. I'm wondering, would you attendees please stand up for just a moment? The recipients of the awards? Congratulations, guys. Congratulations to all of you. This is an amazing accomplishment, and we're very pleased to have you here. Now, here's an interesting fact about tonight's award recipients that our guys pointed out. Of the 11 flight schools receiving awards tonight, 8 utilized flight simulators in their training operations, and 7 of those 8 schools use Redbird simulators. Not 100%, but we're getting there, so thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it. During tomorrow morning's main session, the keynote address we'll be having a conversation with the newly minted chairman of the General Aviation and Manufacturers Association and the CEO of Piper Aircraft, Simon Caldecott. And after that, another one of my favorite traditions at Migration, a conversation with the aviation press. Ian Twombly of AOPA Publications, Robert Goyer of Plane and Pilot, Hal Bryan of EAA, and Amy Laboda of Women in Aviation will join Craig Fuller on the stage to give us their take on the state of general aviation. We'll hear, among other things, what they think was the coolest thing and most important new things they've seen this year. And in addition to that, they have all agreed to expose every dirty little secret, industry secret and scandal that they were afraid to put into print. So this is no doubt going to take 4 hours, but it's really going to be great. Well, I'm sure you'll agree it's been an eventful year since Migration 2015. And we and everyone in this room representing the most vital and irreplaceable part of general aviation have a lot to be proud of. Katie Pribble and her team at AOPA's You Can Fly initiative is now fully underway. I've had the privilege of sitting in on some of the briefings, and I can tell you that You Can Fly is a brilliantly conceived collection of projects aimed at increasing the pilot population and ensuring our industry's long-term health. Hal Bryan from EAA is here representing our heroes at EAA. Their support and encouragement was key to making the Pilot Proficiency Center at AirVenture possible this year. This year, the Pilot Proficiency Center was visited by 5,000 pilots and 2,700 flight simulator training sessions conducted by 87 volunteer flight instructors from NAFI, SAFE, and many of the flight schools in this room. Thank you, John Gibson of NAFI, for your help. Thank you, Michael Phillips of SAFE, and all of you flight instructors in the room that worked so hard at AirVenture to make this happen. Would you guys all please stand up for just a moment and show yourselves? Because I know a lot of you guys are here. Thank you, guys. Great job. And thanks also to all the companies and organizations that put their money where their mouth is for this project, including Hartzell Propeller, Jeppesen, AOPA, Plane and Pilot Magazine, MindStar, David Clark, Pilot Edge, and Pilot Workshops. Thank you, guys. The creative geniuses in Redbird's marketing department came up with an interesting idea this year. And, you know, coming up with interesting ideas is one thing, but turning that into a flawlessly executed product is really quite another. But when it happens, as sometimes it does, it really is magic to me. The Winging It Road to Oshkosh video series with our resident diva, Brittany Machalka, with the help of our customer flight schools, was one of those truly flawless projects. If you haven't seen them yet, you're in for a treat. 10 episodes highlighting the adventure of learning to fly was viewed over 400,000 times throughout the summer and beyond. And a very special thanks to our customers who helped us by appearing in that series. Some of them are here today: Bob Hepp of Aviation Adventures, Taylor Albrecht of Crosswind Concepts, Greg Rourke of Aspen Aerospace Alliance, Michael Phillips of Aviation Instruction, and Roger Sharp in the CAF Centex wing. Thank you very much, guys, for your help with that. I really appreciate it. This past year, Redbird achieved an interesting milestone. We now have over 1,600 Redbird simulators operating worldwide, with nearly half of our production now going overseas. Now, that milestone might only be interesting to me, except that there are some interesting implications, which brings me to the first announcement I'd like to make this morning. For a little context, some of you in the room may recall, back in 2008, before the banks went to pieces, flight schools that were members of the CPC program could go and get a loan from Cessna Finance for new airplanes and the simulator of their choice. That program was the rocket fuel that kept the 172 production line going and made it easy for flight school operators to invest in simulators for their schools. Well, that program went away when Cessna Finance collapsed, and so did the sales of 172s. Flight school operators interested in investing in simulators were forced to go back to their local banker for a loan on equipment the banker didn't understand and on equipment with uncertain residual value. Being able to establish the residual value on a piece of capital equipment is key for the banks. Consequently, the lending market for simulators in the last 8 years has been pretty bleak, but this has just changed. Today, there are enough Redbirds in the market and enough demand for used equipment that Redbird can now qualify for standard equipment loans. And I'm very pleased to announce that starting now, a new Redbird service enterprise called Redbird Finance, powered by our partners at Bank of the Ozarks. Flight schools interested in buying Redbirds can now go to a single national lender that already understands the equipment and the benefit of owning a Redbird and get an equipment loan quickly and simply. We are very proud of the program that Bank of the Ozarks has designed for us. Michael Cole is here at the conference from Bank of the Ozarks. He'll be explaining the program during the breakout sessions, or you can just grab him during one of the social events, throw a couple of beers at him, and negotiate the rate down 2 or 3 points. And I highly recommend that. Mike, thank you very much for your help and your confidence in our simulators. We appreciate it. Another milestone of sorts that ought to be pretty apparent to everyone, given the trajectory of this particular conference, is the skyport here is no longer big enough for this event. We do the best we can here by creating enough meeting areas for the breakouts, but if we try to keep the conference going at the skyport much longer, it may mean that we will have to begin limiting the attendance, and we're convinced that that would be a very bad idea. Well, the Redbird Halo is alive and well, and I'm very pleased and excited to tell you that thanks to our friends, our good friend and board member Jack Pelton, that Migration 2017 will be held on October 16th, 17th, and 18th at the EAA Air Museum in Oshkosh. This is going to be great fun. It's a beautiful venue, nearly unlimited facilities, and hosting a conference that will draw even more flight training institutions, increasing our collective opportunities for networking and influence with those that we need to influence. Hal, thank you, and thank Jack for us. Jack wanted to be here for the announcement, but is in Cuba with a GA delegation for meetings and to replenish his humidor, I guess. And one other important announcement before I introduce our first keynote speaker this morning. Having to do with Redbird past and future. 10 years ago, when we started, things were decidedly simpler. We were a decidedly simpler operation than we are today. Lots of inventing and engineering, and not much bookkeeping, manufacturing, inventory control, or personnel issues. I did mean that. Things have certainly changed for the better, of course, but we are getting to be a very complex business with a wide variety of products targeting more divergent and complicated markets. And the most recent notable example of this is our new line of products called Alloy, targeting the 10 million plus home-built simulator enthusiast market. It's a huge market. It is axiomatic that as one becomes more successful in their profession or their career, the farther away they get from those things that drew them into the profession in the first place. For that and other reasons, beginning January the 1st, I will be stepping away from day-to-day operations and development at Redbird, and a newly organized leadership team will take the reins of the company. My very long-time partner and friend, Todd Willinger, will continue in his role as Chief Executive Officer, steering the company around the rocks and ensuring that Redbird continues to lead our industry in customer service and innovation. And I'm pleased to tell you that Charlie Gregoire will assume the role of President and Chief Operating Officer. Charlie's challenge will be to make sure the company's products and technologies continue to meet the needs of all of our customers and continue our company's inexorable march toward world domination. Since the beginning of the company, Charlie led a sales, design, and marketing effort unlike anything the industry has ever seen. His creativity and leadership has made Redbird one of the most valuable brands in training aviation and aviation training. So please join me in congratulating Todd and Charlie as they lead Redbird into the next 10 years. Congratulations, guys. You know, as for me, I'll remain the majority owner of Redbird, and will share the work with one of my other good friends, Craig Fuller, as the co-chairman of the board of Redbird. Well, I think that's about enough news for one speech, I think. As I mentioned earlier, this year's conference themes are invention and big data. This morning we'll be talking about invention, and tomorrow big data and its implications for flight training. Our expectations for the importance of big data in understanding and improving flight training practices and systems was behind our decision to develop Redbird's Sidekick product, which was used at the Pilot Proficiency Center at Oshkosh and is on display here. Now, of course, you've all heard the term big data, and you may be tired of hearing about it. Everything is big data now, just like everything is ball bearings, It's true that there is a lot of hype around the term. And that is unfortunate because big data as a concept is extremely important to understand. We're accustomed to looking at what you might call data fragments or small data and using those fragments to draw conclusions about whatever it is we're looking at the time. Better measurement and collection techniques along with cheap data storage facilities mean we now have access to an ocean of data points. And as we learn how to organize and associate and compare that data, we find surprising and wonderfully valuable things. And I guess that might be worth a short explanation. Tell you what, since this is an aviation training conference, let's test your knowledge on the grocery business. What is America's favorite pie? Shout it out. What is America's favorite pie? You're going to have to shout it. Apple, right? Apple. I mean, that seems pretty obvious, right? I mean, it's Apple. And what's the evidence what's the evidence of that? I mean, the evidence is data from supermarket sales of 12-inch pies tells us that Apple wins, no contest. The majority of sales are Apple, America's favorite pie. And now you see the value of small data. But several years back, supermarkets started selling smaller, personal-sized pies, and suddenly and mysteriously, Apple fell from first to fourth or fifth place. Now, why is that? I mean, what the heck happened? Okay, let's analyze this with the benefit of more data points. When you buy a 12-inch pie, the whole family has to agree on a single flavor. And now, with this extra data point, the sales of single-serve pies, we clearly see that Apple is everyone's second favorite pie. When a consumer can buy a pie they don't have to share, they buy the one that they want most. Now you have more data, and you can see something that you couldn't see when you only had this smaller fragment. Now the point here is that more data doesn't just let us see more, like more of the same thing. The more data allows us to see new. It allows us to see better, and it allows us to see different. And in this case, it allows us to see that what America's favorite pie is, and it ain't Apple. Our keynote speaker tomorrow morning, Jim Barry, CEO of Passer Aviation, is a very cool guy from a very cool company that is leading the way to helping the most important players in the aviation industry do things better by collecting and arranging huge amounts of data presented in different and creative ways. His presentation tomorrow, which we've dubbed the Moneyball of Aviation, is an amazing exploration of data collection and analysis as a driving force behind business innovation. And I can hardly wait to hear this. Let me finish with a word about invention and one of the most influential inventors of our time. Just a little more than 2 years ago, Dale and Alan Klapmeyer were inducted into the National Aviation Hall of Fame ceremony at Dayton, Ohio. And I can tell you it's a rare thing to get to stand on a stage with an inductee of the National Aviation Hall of Fame, someone who shares the same honor with Wilbur Wright and Chuck Yeager and Neil Armstrong, but here I am. There's not much new I can tell this audience about Cirrus aircraft, except perhaps that the Cirrus SR-20, the SR-22, and the S-22T are more than just beautiful, comfortable, and cool. Cirrus's relentless pursuit of safety advancements has changed general aviation forever. For instance, their pioneering work to deliver every aircraft with a full airplane parachute system has saved 95 lives to date. And the industry-leading innovation continues with the SF-51 50 Vision Jets. So what's on your Christmas list this year? Ladies and gentlemen, I am very pleased to introduce this morning's keynote speaker and one of my heroes, Dale Clapmeyer.